Before we get into the episode today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered on and pay my respects to elders both past and present, as well as acknowledging any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander educators who are tuning in. Welcome everybody to another episode of Educator Yarns. Today I am joined by Linda Wilson, who is originally from Sweden and moved to Australia in 2016 with her husband and 2 boys. They've been living and exploring on Burwaring land ever since. She brought with her a deep appreciation for nature shaped during her childhood in Swedish forests, where nature was her greatest teacher. She completed her Bachelor of Teaching in Sweden, and she has been dedicated early childhood teacher at Sentia Early Learning in Melbourne CBD. She is deeply inspired by the ways Aboriginal perspectives, place-based learning and nature pedagogy intertwine. I am going to read out her nomination just to embarrass her a little bit. But here it says, during her years with us, we have watched her personal and professional growth from being a follower to becoming a leader. She has gained skills and confidence with each passing year and embraced every challenge of her role with excellence, commitment and passion. Linda tells us how growing up in Sweden, she used to spend her days exploring in the forest near her home, with creatures for friends and nature as her guide. She returned home when prompted by a grumbling stomach or the setting sun. When the local Kindy was built by her forest, she felt sorry for the children who had to spend their days confined to learning within 4 walls. This passion for community and the Indigenous flora and fauna of Australia has motivated Linda to follow the lead of children in her kindergarten program based in the city of Melbourne to get answers to their many questions, such as who made the river and where does the Yarra flow. This intrepid group of explorers has logged more than 30 excursions into the community each year, where they connect with the land through their 5 senses. Every child in Linda's room can tell the story of Bunjil the eagle, creator of the land. They carry in their hearts a sense of awe, wonder and deep respect for First Nations people, the traditional owners of the land. The children proudly acknowledge the land on which we love, learn and play every day. Their lives and connection to land will never be the same as a result of this courageous teacher who has dared to venture outside the 4 walls of the classroom. It just sounds so magical. I've heard a lot, Linda, about the forest schools in Sweden. Do you want to share a little bit about that experience of what it's like there?
So in Sweden, we focus a lot on relationships with nature, and we spend a lot of time in nature, almost all time. In Kindy is located outside, so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in a playground connected to the service. It's quite often also out in the forest, or sometimes the kinders, they don't even have a building. It's just a place where you go with a little shed where they can even sleep, and you cook food on a little fire, and you put a lot of focus on risky play and to just engage with natural resources and things you can find in the forest. Mm-hmm. And one thing I think is very important that they focus on a lot in Sweden is that you always go back to the same place. You have a certain place in the forest that you keep going back to explore and to connect to.
And why is that? Why do you keep going back to the same place?
I think it is just a question about when you take the children out, and because almost every little city or village in Sweden is connected to a big forest, so it's hard to avoid all these forests around. So you just happen to end up in a forest, and then normally the children, they always find a place in the forest that they really, really like. So they start to talk about it, and they say, oh, this place is so nice, and we want to maybe build a little hut here, or we want to do something. Look, this can be the kitchen, and we can use this stream for exploring and building a dam. So then they want to go back to that place and make it their own.
Well, that's what we know, right? It's about the importance of revisiting and to go deeper instead of just as a one-off, because often children are so excited sometimes. I mean, it's the norm in Sweden, right? But in Australia, what I find, where they're services don't have a nature program attached where they go out on country regularly. When the children do go out of the gate, they're just excited to be out of the gate. Sometimes they're excited about being out in the community or being on the bus or crossing the road. That's the highlight. But when you go and you revisit again and again, it just normalizes it. So they're able to focus and delve deeper into their play. So I like that idea of revisiting. So when you were growing up in Sweden, you mentioned that nature was your greatest teacher. And is there a particular experience from your childhood that you remember that made you particularly passionate about nature and education?
Yes, I bring with me very fond memories of my very early years. So I never went to a kinder myself. So my house was also next to a big forest. So from the age of 3 years old, I was just out in the forest by myself the whole day, exploring. I had one best friend. He was 1 year older than me. So as far as I can remember, I was just out there exploring every single day. It didn't matter if it was raining, snowing, or what type of weather it was. I was always out there, and I kept coming back to these little places, and I made sure everything was okay in all these little places. So I went for little routes to make sure everything was fine with all trees and flowers and everything. And I was just walking around there, and I didn't have any toys or anything with me. I was just there, and it felt like the nature that in that place become my friend. And that is something I always brought with me, that connection and that meaningfulness I always felt in nature. It has been shaping me to who I am today, and that is something I really want to teach the children I meet in my service, to find that connection and that enjoyment you can have in nature, because I think that's incredibly important, especially when we're living in a society where everything has to go so fast, and there is a lot of demands on us. So I think that's a very important place where you should spend a lot of time.
Yeah, to ground yourself and to slow down. I think there's so many benefits. But Australia is really different to Sweden. And so I'm interested in the Australian context, how you incorporate that place-based learning and Aboriginal perspectives into your classroom to enrich children's understanding and their connection to land. What are some things that you do here as a teacher?
Yeah, it has been quite a long journey for me, because when I came to Australia, I have to admit, I didn't know anything at all about Aboriginal practices at all. I had been in Australia as a tourist before, so I had seen boomerangs around. That was maybe the only thing I've been exposed to. But when I started to read more about it, and I saw how closely connected Aboriginal perspectives are to nature and tell your story on the land, I started to feel like how close that was to my own values as well, and that maybe Aboriginal perspective was not that hard to understand after all. So the whole journey in terms of Aboriginal perspective started one day in my service, Sentia Early Learning, that is located in the middle of CBD, that the children were sitting next to a window, and we have this amazing view where we can see the Yarra River just flowing past the service. And the children started to ask me a lot of questions about the Yarra River, and they wanted to know where is the river leading to, and a lot of questions about the things they could see out the window, like Enterprise Park, we can see as well, for example. So then from these questions, we decided as a group, me and the children, that we should go out and start to explore our own local area more. And the first document I started to use that was very, very useful was the 8 Aboriginal ways of learning. that helped me a lot through the first weeks and have to get around it all.
Hi everyone, I'm just jumping in quickly to remind you all that Beck and I have a series of upcoming events and workshops all throughout Queensland where we'll be yarning about the new ELF principles, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives and sustainability. We'll be in Toowoomba, Cairns, the Gold Coast, Brisbane, Mackay, Townsville, you name it, we'll be there, and we hope to see you all there. All right, take care everyone, enjoy the episode. Yeah, the 8 ways of learning, I think, is a pretty powerful approach where you look at, you're teaching through culture and not about culture. And one of the 8 ways of learning is land links and that connecting with country, which is where you've sort of said you've found that synergy. And you've mentioned that at the kindergarten, you go on lots of excursions each year. Is there a certain place on country that you take children to get them to connect with nature and the land?
Yes, that actually varies from year to year. So the first year, it was a lot of focus on the Yarra or Birrarung, and we learned the history along the Yarra River. But then it depends on what group of children I have. Last year, they were very interested in footy. So then we decided to go to Yarra Park and play a lot of footy because that place, it's located close to MCG, and that place is a very important place for the Wurundjeri people in Melbourne. So we spent a lot of time there, and in that park you can also find a lot of scarred trees. So we spent a lot of time there, and the children, they got really interested in the scarred trees, and we went on scar tree hunting, and then we realized that that space was also used as a space for the Wurundjeri people when they played their footy game, Nordic. So that was very exciting for the children to realize that they were actually using this space in the same way as the Wurundjeri people used to do. So then we spent a lot of time in that park, and the children wanted to learn everything about Nordic, and we talked about that the whole year. And this year we have been focusing more on Port Phillip Bay, because the children have been very interested in land caring and how we can take care of the bay better.
Okay. So with Mangrook and all this information that you're discovering, how do you learn all of that? Is there someone that you're working with in partnership in the community that's guiding you to share information about the scar trees and Mangrook and so forth, or are you just doing a lot of research on your own? How do you find all of this?
So I have been trying a lot to reaching out to different groups in the community, but it has sometimes it's a bit hard to maintain these ongoing relationships with Aboriginal communities out there in Melbourne CBD. So I have also done a lot of research myself. One very useful tool that I have used is actually a website that is offering a mapping tool.
Oh, okay,
so it's developed by the Melbourne Council in collaboration with the Wurundjeri people and Bunurong people and their land councils. So on this map you can see every single place in Melbourne that has important history, and a little explanation why it's important and how you can learn from that space. So that has been a very, very useful tool for me. So I'm choosing out different spots together with the children, what spots we're gonna focus on that year and how we can do that.
Yeah, got you.
That has been the main tool, I think.
And I love how you've been able to do this in context with the children's interests, so it's really relevant and meaningful. It's really resonating with them as well. So, and look, I think that's very common, a lot of community members, particularly when you're in a CBD sort of city area, the Aboriginal community and the organisations that exist there, they're often stretched quite thinly. and they don't have time to go and give that support. So looking at the resources that they've made and sticking to that, at least you know that it's an ethical resource, it's an accurate resource. And so doing your research, I think, is the right thing to do. And you mentioned as well that the children were particularly interested in the story of Bunjil, the eagle.
Yes, Bunjil is with us throughout all these adventures, because it's such an important figure in when you start to talk about Melbourne. And quite often I also read, it's a dream story about Bunjil and how the bay was created, and then that links to everything and all the places in Melbourne. So Bunjil is significant in everything we're doing in the program.
Have you got questions about nature play, sustainability, or how to meaningfully include Aboriginal culture in your early childhood program? Call 0253 000 306 and leave a voice message for the Educator Yarns podcast. Beck Burch from Bush Kindies Australia and Jessica Staines from the Koori curriculum will be answering your questions, offering practical advice, cultural guidance, and inspiring ideas to support your teaching and planning. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your program deeper, your question could shape future episodes and support other educators across the country. Dial in today at 0253 000 306. And so is that something that you do back inside the service? Because I know like you're particularly passionate about the outdoor learning and on-country experiences that you're doing, but what are some things that you do within the service to sort of support Aboriginal programs with children or to reflect these experiences that you have out of the gate?
Yeah, so the indoor environment is a place for us to reflect on what we are doing outside. So all the setups and everything inside the room is a reflection on what we are doing out in the community. So we have a big wall, for example, where we are doing our own map with experience we have done. So it's a piece of documentation for the children to really connect the dots and understand what we have been doing outside and how that is related to themselves. And then obviously all the excursions also inspire the children to express themselves through meaningful artwork experience, for example.
That's amazing, Linda.
Yeah, so the whole room is everyone that's coming into the room, they always say, wow, it's really like they can say it's everything has a meaning in a Aboriginal way. Every single thing is there has a connection to that significant place.
I love that.
I'm looking for in Melbourne. Yeah.
In your experience, what role do you think teachers play in fostering a sense of belonging and care for the land with young children?
Well, I think you have to be passionate yourself. I think it's very important, and you have to have your heart has to be in it. But then I think you have to let the children, you just have to offer that experience to children, because as soon as they get out there, they will start to ask you these questions. And what I really realized is that every single child I have had at my service that have doing these experiences, they feel very proud of the Aboriginal community, and I really feel like they want to do a difference themselves. Even I remember one time we went out for excursion, and there was a man, he was swiping the streets with a broom, cleaning, and then a little boy, he said, "Oh, thank you so much for taking care of our land. I'm so happy you're doing that." And things like that makes me so proud to see these little children starting to think they want to make a difference and see these little things.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I know, it's so nice.
Your practice sounds absolutely amazing, but I am wondering, have you had any challenges with implementing your nature program or including Aboriginal perspectives in your curriculum?
Yeah, one of them was what we were talking about before, that it can be hard to maintain long-standing relationships with Aboriginal services. But then sometimes I can also feel like we are very, so the whole center is very diverse. We have a lot of educators and families from all around the world. So a lot of the educators, myself included, was that when you're starting at the service and you're starting to teach in Australia, you are a bit scared of how are you supposed to teach the children about Aboriginal perspectives, because you're not exactly sure how to do that.
And I think, like what you said before, is like doing that research and finding that synergy with yourself. You know, like you're particularly passionate about, you know, learning on country, and that's your way in. And other educators might be really passionate about art-based experiences. So use art as your way in. So just really lean into your passion. I think if you start with that, you can't really go wrong. But I'm just wondering, Linda, just to wrap up our conversation today, is there any advice that you would give to educators that are listening, that maybe they want to start an on-country program the same way that you have, or they're looking for ways to include culture in their program? What advice would you give to them that are listening?
So in terms of community-based learning and land-based learning, there was something I heard that really stuck to me, and that is that we need to remember that we are living with nature and in the landscape. We are not standing observing it. We are part of it. And I think that's a massive difference, to understand that we are with the landscape. We are not just living on it like passive observers. That helped me a lot to try to see that difference.
Yeah, we have a similar saying. It's like you're walking with country, not on country.
Yeah, I think that is so important to remember, that we also are part of that, and that we also have stories that we can tell. So we can continue to create memories and stories on the land, even if it's our own.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, Linda. I think you've really got me interested. I want to learn more about your service. And I know that our educators that are listening would be taking a lot away from this. And I really love when I hear that there's synergies, like those cross-cultural synergies from what you have in Sweden, which is a completely different landscape to what we have here in Australia.
Yeah.
But particularly what you have in Melbourne CBD, it's very, very different. But you're still able to take those same sort of values and that same ethos and principle and sort of see that synergy of what you have in Sweden, and you can share that with Aboriginal people here. I think it's very beautiful. And what you've been able to do with children, I think it's very inspiring. So congratulations again on your nomination.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really, really appreciate that. I was so happy today that I was able to share this, because I feel like that gives me so much acknowledgement and inspiration to continue to teach the children in this way that I'm doing.
Please do. I want to come and visit you.
welcome.
I'm in Melbourne all the time. So next time I'm in Melbourne, I'm going to look you up.
You're more than welcome. We have been using all your webinars, and you are massive inspiration for us all at Sentia. So you're more than welcome anytime.
Oh, thank you. Oh, well, it's lovely meeting you, and thanks for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. To find out more information about the Koori curriculum and how we can best support you in your early learning service, visit www.kooricurriculum.com.